Excuse me. Sir? I was wondering if you might recognize the girl in this photograph?
¿Qué carajo estás haciendo aquí? ¡Lárgate, cabrón!
Sorry to have bothered you.
Freeze! I said freeze!
Where am I? What? Wait. That's good. That's fine. That's perfectly good. That's... Resi 4 VR is both an amazing game and one I cannot in good faith recommend to just anyone without covering some caveats. I can't understate the borderline concussive sensation of playing through something you know so well, maybe even like the back of your hand from a more immersive perspective. And I mean, straight up, you might know me. You might not too, that's fine. But if you do, you know that I take a lot of pride in making sure that my videos are as good as they can be. I do this for fun, it's not my job, it's something I'm just very passionate about, and so I tend to go above and beyond. For example, I'm well known for using an action camera to show how VR games work in and out of headset. I care a lot about my presentation because I think it's key to driving a point home. Unless people can see what I'm talking about as clearly as possible, I'm worried they won't understand it, but playing Resi 4 hooked up to my PC just so that I could get better video quality versus streaming the footage wirelessly was not something I wanted to do, because being able to go cordless and turn around any which way full 360, this is such a good feeling that I was not and am not willing to forfeit it just for the sake of a better quality video. So there, that's why this footage is going to look a little poopy. Hey, it's VR footage anyways, it's shaky as hell, you're going to get motion sick just watching it no matter what. Sorry, but too bad, so sad. That's how important immersion is to this game though. I was and am willing to make a lesser quality video for it. As far as being in the world of Resi 4 goes, there's the little moments. Things like surprising yourself by not immediately recognizing a certain area because you're so used to seeing it from a very particular camera angle. Or times you notice something that you never have before. For example, I never realized that there was a river behind the El Gigante arena until now. I mean, it makes sense, the previous area shows a river running by the side, but here, without the environmental sound effect for it, I never realized that it kind of continued on past this. Or in the village, being so much closer to all the objects made the subtle details stand out more. I noticed at one point this wood-burning oven in one of the houses, and after checking the back and expecting to call the game out on a fault, I was pleasantly surprised to see that the chimney pipe continued outside. And this is really stupid to be starting a video off with, but it's not that these little details are new or anything. These have always been there. I've just lacked the clarity and perspective to notice them until now. And as far as playing this game goes, and if you're as familiar with it as I am, this is definitely the first experience you'll have that'll distinguish this version of Resi 4 from others. And I mean, look, I'm no stranger to playing VR games in familiar worlds. One of my favorite things to do in this medium is to pop into FPS matches and maps from old games I've been to before, in virtual worlds I practically grew up in. Contractors is probably the closest thing we're gonna get to a VR Call of Duty, and so playing matches in modded Modern Warfare maps is a surreal experience. Knowing the maps, having traversed them and played similar games in them before gives you an advantage. You might not have seen them in 3D or interacted with them with motion controls or with this game's rule set before, but you know where everything is, where all the popular hiding spots are, and how to move around. It's a wild time. But here, it's on a whole other level, because you're not accessing these Resi 4 maps through another game the way you do when you proxy to Call of Duty through Contractors. No, you're in VR, in the Resi 4 maps, in Resi 4. You're not just an avatar casually exploring a 3D space, which, again, is a neat experience in and of itself. I've done this in Resi maps in VR chat before, it's sick. But no, you're in these familiar worlds playing this familiar game the same way you did almost 20 years ago. And that's where things start to go crazy, where we go beyond just the neat little novelty of uncovering hidden details in the design of the world. Here's where the magic of VR exposes you to aspects of the game's design that, I reiterate, have always been there, but until this medium, this headset, this mode of interaction, have never been accessible. First of all, big round of applause goes out to the knife. This little guy is totally unsheathed here. With no lengthy animations to holster your current weapon and draw it, this fucking thing is off the hook. Keeping it out drawn and dual wielding it alongside a pistol is the way to go. It lets you save ammo on almost any kill, and fuck, it's just so fun to swing around. I'll be real though, it is a little bit weird that most of your kills in this game are against unarmed, unresponsive, stunned people who are lying down. It doesn't always feel great to be pointing a gun down at them and taking a knee to give them a couple of jabs up close. And to be honest, I was kind of worried about that going into this, like from the moment the game was revealed. I was like, Resi 4 is the kind of game where you kill most guys by standing right over them and blowing holes in their chest at point blank. I'm not sure how well that'll translate to VR, yo. What the fuck? I was kind of hoping they'd tweak the amount of time enemies stayed down to make this whole ordeal less awkward, less raw. They definitely didn't. Yeah, you know what? Maybe fuck the knife, actually, now that I think about it. I just kind of wrote myself into a corner here. Straight up, in like the most real way possible, if you think you'd be sensitive to this kind of violence, it's like, I mean, if you're min-maxing like you do in a Resi game, then a good 50% of the enemies you kill are just guys that are laying on the floor flat like a pancake, totally defenseless. It made sense in a slower-paced game where you couldn't move and shoot at the same time, where you had to sit to piss. Yeah, of course, knockdown guys have to stay there a while so you have time to aim. But it doesn't make so much sense now that they've freed your feet. So I could totally understand someone being uncomfortable with this very strange dance that the game makes you do over and over again in this medium. So I'd maybe consider giving this one a skip if you're nervous about that. I'll say this though, if they ever think about unpacking Resi 5's baggage for a possible VR port too, they're probably going to want to rethink the way this works. That's the really weird thing about VR, or like critiquing a game in VR. Even if it's, you know, reusing a system or a mechanic or a whatever that was made almost 20 years ago, like it's not enough to just like check that it works in VR and be like, yeah, it works, okay, cool, check mark. Like you gotta kind of consider, like, I don't know if you should call this the game feel or maybe like the body feel, but when you critique this, you have to think about how potentially uncomfortable it could make someone feel to have to repeatedly just kneel over people and stab them in the chest or in the head until they die, because like that's something that's always been in Resi 4, but it never felt like this, you know? You know, all this violence is one thing when it's framed from this great cinematic camera angle over the character's shoulder and it looks awesome, but when the perspective is changed to first person and it's your hands coming out of your arms, coming out of your body, and you're doing all of this, it's a little bit grimy. Speaking of violence, hey, check it. This shit is bananas. Now, I've got to mention, the version of Resi 4 I played the most as a kid was the one on the Wii, and I know I've triggered a feeling of disgust and revolt in people before for showing footage of just how much of a breeze taking aim is with those controls, but take this from me, this is a whole other level. You have complete control over your gun. You can point your hand any which way, fire however the fuck you want. Your accuracy is only hindered by the steadiness of your own hands and the reactivity of your own reflexes. Now, I'm a bitch, and a boss, and a stickler for realism in VR games, which is why you'll see I'm using a two-handed grip even though the game doesn't actually feature that, which I should mention since it's not guaranteed you'd be familiar, but this is a thing most VR shooters have. Many of them let you grip a pistol with two hands, which reduces the recoil and improves accuracy. Of course, though, you can always one-hand it in a pinch with those trade-offs. Anyways, the more you know.
Remember, switching to your pistol is always faster than reloading.
But this has made me realize something. It doesn't actually matter that the game doesn't artificially improve my weapon's handling by gripping it with two hands, because that just happens naturally anyways. Holding your hands together, you can just snipe fuckers from across the map with pinpoint accuracy. And yeah, you can aim down sights, which is really nice, but after some conditioning to the laser pointer, you can kind of just get a feel for it and quickly pop off shots with great precision, just by intuiting the right angle with your depth perception. It's hard to explain if you've not played a 3D game with motion controls before, but you can very easily track distant targets without properly aiming down your gun's sights, just using whatever mechanisms your body uses to let you point at things in the real world without needing to stick your finger right under your eye socket to actually aim down the sights of your finger. Now, this all sounds great, but so far this praise is applicable to basically any VR game. And I said I'd found some hidden game design details specific to Resi 4, so what gives? Oof, sheesh. Hold your horses, pal, because I've got to get my 10 blue medallions first.
Welcome. Got some rare things on sale, stranger. What are you buying? Wise choice, mate. Its ammo will penetrate just about anything.
The Mother. The Punisher. The Punisher is a gun in Resident Evil 4 that I have never given a fucking shit about. It's the second gun you get in the game, you can even get it for free if you do an optional side objective. Its gimmick is that it's the only pistol that can penetrate two bodies at once, but it's also the weakest pistol in the game, and since it was always hard with the tank controls to actually line up one of those 2-for-1 shots and take advantage of its special perk, it became less of a gun and more of a phase that everyone who's played Resi 4 has gone through. It's just an in-between gun that carries you for a while until you can sell it and get either the Red 9 or the Blacktail. Now, here I am, near the end of Resi 4 VR, and I am still strapped with the 2-for-1 drill. What gives? In fact, by this point I've kept it so long I've even fully upgraded it. I don't think I've ever kept the Punisher past the goddamn house level before. I say again, what gives? Let me tell you what gives. The Punisher gives everyone in front of it and behind them something to fear. The fact that you can move your hands freely and aim this gun truly any way you like means originally what was just a cool little perk that you were lucky if you managed to actually use is now something you can fully take advantage of. You have the mobility and agency in this game to place yourself right so that every shot you take goes through one guy and into another. You do this long enough, you start seeing enemies less as one potential target each and more as windows into each other. And talk about Simba, you get in the habit of looking beyond what you see, pulling off trick shots like it's Zelda and you're shooting arrows through a lit torch, except the lit torch is one guy and your target is just another guy behind him. And that's just when it's 2-for-1. By the time you fully upgraded it, each shot can pierce up to 5 guys. Burgers and fries. You line these guys up like it's Domino's. Pizza. This mechanic completely changes how you interact with your pistol. It lets you play the game like you're the guy they call in to do the cutscenes. It's technically not, but it's hard not to call this a power-up. Because that's the thing that makes it so interesting. This feature isn't new. This isn't an addition made just for the VR mode. This gun has always had this nifty little gimmick, but until now, you've never been able to unlock the entirety of its potential. This is a game design choice from 17 years ago that's only now reached fruition, and that is wild to think about. Imagine this, almost a Canadian drinking ages worth of years ago, some guy in an office in Japan is like, hey, it'd be cool if this weird freebie gun had a twist where it could shoot through 2 guys at once, and then someone greenlit it and they called it a day. Back then, I mean, forget just about when Resi 4 was being developed, when it came out, Facebook wasn't even a site you could register for unless you were at one of their partnered schools. It wasn't for another year that it'd be open up to the public. Whenever the hell it was this game design decision was made, when this mechanic was thought of and implemented, Facebook was still just an unproven social media website and was still years away from even looking like this. Now, today, I'm playing what was hilariously supposed to be a GameCube exclusive game on a portable, wireless, stereoscopic 3D Facebook VR gaming headset interacting with a mechanic that fits this method of interaction like a fucking glove, but was come up with well before any of this future we're in was even close to predictable.
I have no point of reference for Philadelphia other than, like, their hockey team and, like, obviously the sandwich.
Also, like, did you know that the Punisher actually penetrates the shield guys? I didn't. I hate these guys. I've always hated these guys, but I never kept this dinky gun around long enough to find this out. I thought I knew everything about Resi 4, but here I am discovering something new. Just what an experience. It's like reaching into the past and shaking hands with a game's inner workings. Every time you draw the Punisher from its holster, it's like having a one-on-one with Resi 4 itself and being like, young Caterpillar, I see what you was trying to do back then. You were a bit off though, but hey, check this out. And then you kill like 20 dudes like a fucking maniac. I love video games. I love VR. This scares me, but like, if we can squeeze more shit like this out of him, I say hell yeah. Speaking of uncovering hidden potential that's always been there, this is the scariest dog of all time. I've seen some scary dogs in my life, like this guy, but this guy? I've never wanted the dog to get as far away from me as quickly as possible as I have with this guy. Like I've said, there are many things in Resi 4, many little details that were obviously never planned to be seen in VR, and it's a transcendent experience to uncover them yourself. But there are also things in the game that were never meant to be in VR because they're too scary. In fact, I'm sure if the game knew that it was one day going to be represented like this, experienced like this, would have maybe like toned down some of these things. And these things, you don't have to uncover them. They uncover themselves. That sounded fucking weird. See, there's a conscious effort among many VR developers to avoid situations that might be too frightening. I've talked about this before, but some horror games automatically end if the player finds themselves in a state without any ammo because of how uncomfortable of an experience it is to have enemies slowly corner you without any way of defending yourself. In Phasmophobia, the ghost killing animation is slow and easy to see coming, giving you ample warning if you need to close your eyes, and definitely mitigating a jump scare in players that can read the cue. And of course, the scariest VR game of all, VR Chat, the metaverse itself, lets you fully just turn off other people's animations or even throw up a safety bubble around yourself to avoid anything that might rub you the wrong way. Resi 4 is like, no, you see this dog, you see the way it taunts you with its little head twist? It wants to kill you, and it's gonna come right up in your business area in 2 to 3 business seconds and scare you more than anything you've ever seen. Oh, you thought it was gonna be fun finally being able to run and shoot in RE4? Yeah, outrun this. And then they do it again with the invisible bug people, and then again with the Predator Man, and then again with the Regenerator's little fucking hop animation, straight up. Fuck this. This is eerie, unnatural, and was never meant to be seen from this perspective before. It's terrifying, it's alarming, and I hate everything about it. Same with Predator Man. The way he just goes like 0 to 100, like he doesn't have a transition animation between. Man's got 2 states. I sleep and real shit. As in, me, I really shit my pants. And this is a really weird point to make because it's a criticism that you can't really make about any other version of this game, but in a way it's kind of the same thing as the Punisher. This change in perspective, the heightened immersion and feelings of visceral realism and panic this game gives you, I'd argue particularly because it was never designed with this platform strength in mind, and probably would have toned things down if they knew how close we'd be getting to the action now. These feelings make you, or me at least, play the game fundamentally differently to how I would, and have multiple dozens of times, played the original flat screen version. I used to pinch ammo in this game. I'd be careful not to reload unless absolutely necessary, draining as much out of the free ammo upgrades from the merchant as possible.
Is that all, stranger? Thank you.
Here, I have been so frightened during encounters, particularly in the hedge maze level, that considering the fact that reloading isn't just a button press anymore and that I actually have to do it myself in the heat of the moment, that I've foregone my old min-maxing habits and just reloaded constantly. For the first time ever, in a game that I am so familiar with that straight up a guy from high school who I haven't spoken to in years reached out when he heard Resi 4 was coming to VR because he remembered how fanatical I was about it, which, yeah, to be fair, the cutscene reenactments didn't help, but for the first time ever, I felt like the sense of security in having a full clip, or rather the feeling of vulnerability in not being topped off, outweighed any actual tangible gameplay advantage. I'm typically not someone who falls for immersive tricks like this. If there's a way to take advantage of a system, then you'll catch me doing it. This isn't a game I can do that in. This medium circumvents my mental model of what it's like to play Resi 4, which, embarrassingly but honestly, is one I've developed quite a bit, and instead it activates my fight or flight response, and that's terrifying. I found myself less likely to play conservatively, opting for fast offensive pushes instead, often in the vein of, as I put it, getting things that scare me out of my face as quickly as possible. In the same way that you might overreact to, say, a spider crawling towards you. See, this here might look like I'm absolutely dominating these bugmen, getting right in their face and blasting them away. But really, I'm doing this because their presence frightens me so much that I am willing to waste stupid amounts of my precious shotgun ammo to get them on the ground fast and keep them there till they're dead. This part has always given me a mild case of the heebie-jeebies, but never so bad that it turned off my gamer brain. This is something else. I've been playing VR for a long time, but I've never played a game quite as immersive as this. That said, and this is gonna sound weird coming after so much praise, but I cannot recommend it to you. At least, not unless you meet a certain set of criteria. See, Resi 4 is really hard for me to tell you to go out and buy right now because the only people who I think will be able to get the same amount of appreciation out of it as I are people who, 1, have played a lot of VR games before, and 2, have played Resident Evil 4 before. In my opinion, the people who this is being marketed most strongly towards, aka people who don't yet have an Oculus Quest 2 and that Facebook is banking on converting with this nostalgic system seller, are not going to get the most out of this. In fact, they might walk away from it pretty hurt. That's because the truth is, VR is not something you can just pick up and play. It took me actual years and many ginger tablets to get over the nausea and be able to play anything for longer than 20 minutes without incredible discomfort. I'm talking cold sweats, stomach aches, vomiting, straight up diarrhea, and nausea, dizziness, and a lack of appetite that'll last a whole day. When I first got into VR, I had to plan whole weekends around, 40-minute sessions. I'd make sure I didn't have to drive anywhere the next day, see anyone, go out for anything. I had to commit to nursing myself back to good health just to pop into the Rift for a few games at a time.
Shit, this might be tough. Oh, fucking cleared it. Easy peasy. Whoa, I'm fucking dizzy.
There are a lot of theories about why this happens, and because so many people experience it differently, many of them are probably right. But the one that makes the most sense to me is that VR accidentally triggers one of your body's emergency anti-poison responses. Basically, when there's a mismatch between the motion that your eyes are perceiving versus that the fluid in your inner ear is perceiving, your brain assumes you're hallucinating and that it might be because you've been poisoned. So its response is to make you expel everything. Now, not everybody gets it as bad as me, some people just get the dizziness, but the amount of other physiological symptoms that I've experienced lines up pretty well with this. If you get it like I used to, then you puke, you shit, you piss, and you sweat, all in the vein of trying to get whatever toxins might be inside of you out. And that's such an uncomfortable feeling that I can't blame anyone who's experienced it for feeling demotivated and ruling out VR as something they care to ever try again. In a perfect world, more people would be aware of this. People would consider it before playing, and maybe not assume that their first dip into VR is going to be so magical, maybe even preemptively take some motion sickness pills. Ideally, this would be a barrier to entry, not a barrier to continuing, after you've already paid for the $400 headset and the $45 game. I can't imagine something more discouraging than paying that much for something you just can't feel good in. I mean, I don't have to imagine it. I had that same feeling myself. If I wasn't just so damn committed, red stubborn, my Rift would have probably ended up on Kijiji in a few hours. So that's the first reason I think this can only reasonably be recommended to pre-weathered VR players. People who've by now built up their resistance playing Onward and Pavlov and Boneworks and shit like that. That's no fault on the specific game we're talking about, though. So far, that's just the platform. Sadly, I'm not going to let it stay that way. The other reason I think only VR veterans should play Resi 4 is that, ignoring motion sickness, I don't think it's a good first VR game, because, and I hate to nitpick, but it commits a few sins worth mentioning, all under the umbrella of not conforming to standards followed by other VR games. And I have to mention this because it was a major part of my video about Sniper Elite VR, so to skip on this just because it's not as bad here would be unfair. But the point I'm going to try to make is that for a medium where all the indie devs have shown tremendous dedication to maintaining a sort of parity among their control schemes, locomotion, and interactivity rules, keeping them consistent with one another as not to confuse players, but instead allow them to carry over their knowledge and become accustomed to certain things working the same across different games, it's not so cool when a big AAA studio with a big recognizable IP comes in and says, yeah, fuck that shit, we know better, and tries to reinvent the wheel. Fuck, I sound like a broken record. I really hope someone makes a good VR port of something where I don't have to say this, because we're 2 for 2 now. And the point within that point, or maybe tangential to it, is that that's bad enough on its own, but it's especially worrisome when nostalgia sells so well that this is definitely going to be most people's first foray into VR gaming. And sadly, nothing they learn here is going to be transferable to other titles. To take things back to the flat screen, it's like introducing someone who is new to games to Resi 4 with its old school tank movement, and then expecting them to be able to play normal action games with twin stick controls. It's not going to happen. First of all, this is the second time I'm confronted with a VR game that completely misunderstands how the hell a sniper rifle should work. Luckily this one isn't literally all about sniping, thank God, but it's much, much worse. Now, I know there's probably a performance reason they can't have the scopes work they would in most PC VR games, what with this running on effectively a glorified smartphone, but still, it'd be nice for this to have been handled a little bit more gracefully. And then again, Sniper Elite VR was on the Quest also, and it had no problem doing this, so I'm not actually sure what the deal is here. This is one of the most immersion-breaking things ever, and this footage just doesn't do it justice, so let me try to explain what's going on here. Every time you aim down your scope, the entire game, the entire world fades to black, and your head is effectively transported to a dark room the size of I don't know, maybe 3 shoeboxes, with a circular 2D screen at the end. Because that's the thing, unlike most VR games that simulate optics properly, where only one of your eyes at a time can aim down sights, here you can keep both of them open and stare at this massive plate-sized screen like it's a window of a submarine, except not even, because the image inside the scope screen is projected onto a flat surface. So it's like you're staring at a virtual scope within a virtual game. It's so bad, you can't even tilt it, it stays propped up upright no matter which way your arms are facing. It's basically just the same way the scope used to work in the original game, just barely changed to work in VR. I mean, yeah, in a 2D game it doesn't matter that the whole world fades away while you aim down sights, because you don't have 2 eyes. And it's kind of disappointing considering how this medium was able to unlock potential in other weapons by letting you freely move them. It's dumb as fuck, it feels weird as hell, and I hope I did a good job explaining that. The disconnect between yourself and the world your avatar is actually inhabiting that occurs every time you aim into a scope is so jarring that my coping mechanism, and I know for many others too, has been to purposely hold the rifle sideways and rely instead on depth perception to line up shots. Trust me, nobody's doing this because we think it makes us look cool. It's because it keeps the sights far enough away from our eyes that it doesn't trigger the scope world to activate. It just happening to look super cool though is just a cherry on top, you know? Next, movement. A common complaint I've heard from a lot of first-time VR players popping into this is that Leon just moves way too fast and it's a real nausea inducer. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about when I say I think it takes a little more experience with VR to know what's actually going on here. Because as someone who spent a lot of times in games like this, I can tell you that the issue isn't exactly that the movement is just too fast. The problem is that it doesn't use the now standard movement system all other FPS games use. See, in Resi 4 VR, yeah, Leon moves fast as fuck, but the thing is, he moves fast as fuck no matter what. Whether you're equipped with a gun or not, whether your hands are empty, whether you're aiming down sights, his movement speed in any direction is always the same max constant. But think back to other first-person shooting games. Often there are many different max speeds depending on what you're doing. There's putting your gun down and sprinting, which is fastest, there's jogging while aiming from the hip, and then there's the slow walking pace when you aim down sights. This all makes sense gameplay-wise too, because you trade accuracy for speed. How fast you move and how accurate you aim are a set of codependent choices you make in basically every game. If you moved just as fast no matter how you were aiming, everybody'd be holding aim down sights while they skate around the rink. Most VR games have recognized the importance of that trade-off between velocity and aiming and have found a way to implement the traditional FPS dynamic max speeds with a shared solution that's as simple as it is elegant. What they do is they reduce your speed by a factor of how close your support hand is to being level with your eyes. In other words, as you bring your gun up and aim it down sights to improve accuracy, your maximum speed slows down to something comparable to a walk. Then as you lower your weapon, the game gradually speeds you up. The further you put it down, the faster you go. If you aim it at the floor, you're effectively sprinting. These games are basically reading and interpreting your stance at every given moment and sliding up and down your maximum available speed in a way that feels really natural. From a game design or a difficulty stance, not at least implementing this sort of standard natural VR movement in a near-perfect port of an old game so restrictive that it used to make you stand still to shoot is obviously pretty game-breaking. Like I mentioned before, most of the enemies were never designed for a player with this much control before. Yes, these dudes getting up in your face makes things much scarier and makes you more prone to act dumb and get caught for it. The added agency comes with added immersion, comes with added fear, and that's pretty great at balancing out how much power you now have to enact your will. but I don't think it's fair to call leaning on how scary the enemies are to curb difficulty good game design. Not only is the movement system in other VR games a much better match for gameplay considerations, but it also has the benefit of helping reduce motion sickness. The fact that it's not via button presses or just a simple joystick that you control your speed, but instead a motion control, means that your body's physical movement is coupled to the movement occurring in the game, which tends to help your brain understand that, no, I am not poison, see? My body's in control of this. It also helps that you slow down when you draw your gun closer to your face, because if you're doing that, odds are you're trying to focus on something ahead of you, so any movements you make, you'd probably want to keep subtle instead of flying across the map too fast and risking losing your orientation. Now, it's hard just to leave this as a bullet point in a video like this and move on, so let me reiterate the significance of this. The movement system in Resi 4 VR isn't exactly bad. If you've played a lot of VR games, it'll definitely be a little annoying, but it's not game-breaking and you'll get used to it just fine. But if you are new to VR, as you probably are if you're playing this, then this will not make it easier for you to get past the nausea barrier. And when you've spent well over $500 to get to this party, the least you should be able to expect is that they're not going to try to poison you. And important to remember, movement is just one element of the game, but it's something you'll need to be doing the entire time. It's a hard point to make because it's like, there is something slightly wrong with one part of the game, but that part is less a part, more a layer of dust that rests over the whole thing. What I'd like to say though is that I think it's still a valid and important criticism to make, considering all the popular VR FPS games that have come before and paved the way for Resi 4 have all independently agreed to make movement work the same. And so it's kinda shitty that Resi doesn't too. It makes the developer smell a little like they didn't do their homework. You know what I'm saying? If you're new to VR, playing Resi 4 will not be as easy as it could be. A better starting point would be warming up in any other game first. Cool, moving on. Time to complain about grenades again. Look, Resi 4 doesn't handle these as badly as Sniper Elite, but it still kinda does throw grenades for you. Now, you don't get a predetermined arc. Instead, you throw the grenade physically, but the game still steps in to decide how far you actually threw it. I suspect it basically limits you to the throwing radius Leon had in the original game, which admittedly was pretty piss poor. But the problem remains, it doesn't match your actual force. It's a strange feeling to describe, but basically, you can chuck it with some speed, but the thing just drops off before it gets to where you intended, which has led me and others I've spoken to regret missing a few of those prime grenade moments in the game. It kinda sucks, not gonna lie. Again, fix here seems pretty simple. Just do what every other game does. Let me chuck the grenades how I actually want. Done. Here's something neat. I mentioned this a bit before, but other VR games have learned that one of the coolest thing about having two independent hands is that it gives you a choice about how to engage with one-handed weapons. And, as you can expect, many of them have learned that their job as game designers is to make that choice meaningful. Do you hold it with the minimum of one hand and keep the other free for something else, or do you put your hands together for some added benefit like improved accuracy? The other thing developers have had to think about when it comes to having two hands is how to deal with players who'd like to try gaming the system and use two-handed weapons with one hand. I've seen it dealt with in a couple of different ways. The most common is that rifles will fire with such wild recoil that they're unusable. Other times, when the developer really wants to make the player feel dumb for trying this, they'll straight up force the gun to fly out of their hand from the force of the shot. The one thing they kind of tend not to do, unless, like, it's a goofy action arcadey game and that's the point, is let you dual wield whatever the hell weapons you want without any drawbacks. So, in Resi 4 VR, that's kind of exactly what they do. You can dual wield any two weapons you have equipped. At the beginning of the game, it's tougher, obviously, because both the rifle and the shotgun require an extra manual interaction between each shot to chamber the next round, but by the time you get all the semi-auto guns, you can basically just do whatever the hell you want. Now, personally, I think this ruins the immersion and the difficulty and literally the entire game of Resident Evil 4, and I refuse to play like that, but the designers haven't put anything in place to stop you, and I think that should have maybe been part of their job. I mean, recreating the world of Resident Evil 4 with such fidelity is one thing, but doing this kind of forfeits the fidelity of the gameplay, I think, at least. I mean, fuck, if you're gonna make the goddamn shitty sniper scope work the exact same way it worked in the original game, maybe you shouldn't let other things go this far. I don't know, maybe I'm just a stickler for realism, or maybe I care too much about Resident Evil 4 and the experience I hope other people have with it, but I've played too many VR games that don't let this happen that it feels like an anti-pattern that they didn't prevent dual wielding in a port of a slow-paced survival horror game of all things, as if you weren't already at an unfair advantage now that you can run and gun in Resi 4. And on top of that, they let you dual wield, but they don't even let you officially double-hand pistols. I don't know, again, these are just VR things that have become standard that this game chooses to ignore, that I think it ought to have not. Not just because it would have been a better VR game, but because I think it would have made for a better port of Resident Evil 4 to VR. Now, yeah, let's get down to business. This is Resident Evil, and I know you've been waiting for me to talk about boobs. And I will, but not about the pair you expect. See, before we go any further, I need to tell you about my boobs. And you know what? Maybe yours too. Look, no secret, I'm a large individual. I'm a big fat Greek guy. I've got me some solid titties, like some good old B-cups to catch the fella's attention, know what I'm saying? And you know what sucks? Playing a game that makes use of your body that hasn't considered or been tested against either people with boobs or other diverse body types. I've talked about this before, but many VR games make use of body-based loadouts. That means that your inventory isn't just a menu you hop in and out of, it's physically placed on your body. Weapons might be stored in holsters on your chest, on your legs, or even on your shoulders. To take a look at the map, you might need to flip out an iPad. To store a flashlight, you might need to clip it into your belt. To grab a healing item, you might need to pull it out of your fanny pack. This sort of inventory management is really cool and immersive, and most developers have understood that it requires some customization to work its best. A lot of them let you make little adjustments, but most others project it far away enough from your body that you can reach things with relative ease, even without looking. If you have a good sense of where everything is, you can reach for them pretty quickly, even in the heat of battle. Now, before actually getting my hands on the game, I read a post and thread of complaints about it from people with boobs and was very curious if my own were big enough to get me into the "my titties are too big to play Resident Evil 4 club." Basically, the issue is with two of the game's item slots. The knife and the grenades are right in the center of your chest, not quite on your shoulders, that's for health and your secondary gun. No, these are front of your chest, left and right, exactly where you're imagining. Just like many other players, my experience started out a little rough. I could never really quite find the right spot to blindly grab my knife and had to dig around for it a bunch until finally realizing that where the game places the grip trigger for it correlates to the inside of my left breast. I kid you not, every time I want to grab my knife, I need to dig my hand into my left boob and squeeze. Ditto for my grenades except on the right. This is clearly a game and an inventory system that was only designed with people whose bodies occupy equal to or less volume than Leon's own. It's incredible that this passed on the platform that's trying to be the basis for a metaverse open to everyone. Can't wait till 200 years in the future someone applies for a job with Facebook, but whoops, they can't equip their virtual inventory because their boobs are too big. God bless, what a disaster. Now, yeah, of course, I'm trying to make light of this with humor, comedy, cringe, whatever you say it is, really. Remember, you're a participant in this too. But if you have boobs and you're not a cisgendered guy with both a jolly Mediterranean physique and outlook on life, then being forced to grope yourself just to play a video game might be yet another barrier to entry, I'm sorry to say. Which is not something I ever thought I would ever have to say. This is ironically a game that I don't think any boobed character in its own universe could actually play without feeling uncomfortable, which says a lot about the people behind it. Like, for a series with titties so big they cry wolf, you'd expect a little bit more consideration.
You don't have to get touchy.
I can't believe one of the last legitimate points I'm making in this video is about my boobs. I'm really sorry, yo. This is a new low for me. So, as far as recommendation goes, that leaves veteran VR players, and here's what it comes down to, I think. If you've played or grown up on Resi 4 and happen to also be a seasoned VR early adopter, this is a game you must play. But if you don't have any attachment to this game, maybe you just never played it as a kid, or maybe you're a little younger, you won't be missing out on anything major if you skip this. So much of the enjoyment comes from those little discoveries, the hidden potential that's always been there that you can now uncover by getting to look at familiar views from a different angle. But a prerequisite to that working on you, to that mattering at all to you, to being able to unlock these secret truths embedded within the game for so long, is that you've played it before. If you haven't, if this is your first time around this rodeo, this won't matter to you. This won't impress you. This won't be anything special. Most importantly, it lacks so many little details and quality of life features you've become accustomed to in VR that, compared to any other shooting or survival horror game, this will seem like a step backwards. You can only dig up the hidden treasure in Resi 4 VR if you've already got your hands firmly around the shovel, if you've already got the context. Without knowing the original game, you're just scratching at the surface with your bare hands, and I'll admit, that's not going to be any fun. If you've played Resident Evil 4 before, if you call it one of your favorite games of all time, then you absolutely need to play this version. So long as you don't also have boobs and can handle some kind of fucked up violence. But you should not play it immediately. You need to get used to how your body responds to VR with other games first. In the end, it's just a port. It does well in this format, but it wasn't designed with motion controls or 3D or even freaking Facebook in mind. And so expecting it to be the kind of game that convinces you of the potential of VR as a platform is wrong, I think. It's just a game that's going to remind you that Resi 4 is still really, really good. but it's not going to do much more than that, or much more than the Wii port did back in the day. There were other Wii games that did a better job showing what kind of whack shit that console could do, just like there are better VR games to try if you really want to explore this medium. But because it lacks so much value to anyone who's not already deeply familiar with both Resident Evil 4 and virtual reality, and even though I've personally been having a really good time with it because I am someone who's very fond and experienced with both, I don't think it's fair to call this anything more than a novelty. Like, as a Resi fan, I don't think this is going to fully replace the Wii version to me. And let's be real, that was already just a novelty too. And as a VR fan, I also don't think porting old games is a sustainable way to keep people invested in this platform. It's definitely a good way to get them into the door and sell headsets, but they'll need something better to stay for long. If you'll accept a recommendation I've pulled straight out of my ass, then if you're a VR player looking for a good survival horror game built from the ground up for VR, I'd say take a look at The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. It's on PC VR and Quest 2, and it's cool as hell. And if you're a Resi fan who wants to try an old familiar game in a new immersive way, I wouldn't dissuade you from getting into VR, not at all, but I'd say play some stuff you're less invested in first so that you don't attribute your initial queasiness to Resi 4. You definitely should experience this version of it eventually, and there's a lot in it for you, but you'll need to have strengthened your belly first. I'd say get yourself to a point where you can play through half the headset's battery life before you start to feel queasy in, like a game with first-person movement and stuff, and then you should consider trying it out. Also, the most important thing to know is that they fixed the still water in that one room. So the water here used to be perfectly still, even though it was straight up on an incline, which made no sense. But yeah, they fixed it now. They gave it a current. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of wanted to mention this, but I couldn't really find another spot in the video to drop this so organically. So yeah. That's literally the point I'm going to end on. A joke that's not even funny. I don't know. Cool. Thanks for watching. But no joke, if you're either a Resi fan or a VR fan or both, I legitimately hope this video helped you inform your purchasing decision, because obviously VR is a big investment, and I wouldn't tell anyone to take the plunge unless they're super sure. That's all I got. Okay, thanks, bye. Hello, and welcome to the end screen. Now, first of all, can I... Oh, I think the battery is dead. Oh. So, I don't have the kind of time to go change the battery just for this joke. I mean, I can explain the joke to you. Basically, I was gonna catch you, that caught you in 4K fucking thing of hey, don't you think I didn't fucking catch you looking at my titties before when I was doing that whole groping bit. But I guess it's not as funny when, the punchline doesn't work. Just want to drop in really quick to say that, no Game of the Year video this year. I know that a couple of people were anticipating it. I really appreciate everybody's kind words. I know a lot of people were very excited for it, but I decided to do this instead. This actually started as just one notch in a Game of the Year video, and then I realized that I kind of had a lot more to say about this. If you're curious, my Game of the Year would have been Phasmophobia, and actually, the reason I wanted to drop by here is to say that I actually did an interview with my good friend Hot Cider over on his channel, where he interviewed a bunch of different video creators about their games of the year, and in it I talked with him a lot about why Phasmophobia is my favorite game experience I had this year, which is not exactly for the reasons you might think. There is a little bit of a twist, a la my sort of Game of the Year thing, but anyways, at the end of this I will just play a snippet of that, and if you're interested, there will be a link in the description that you can check out his video. Now, I know I did say in my previous video that after I had skipped a year, I said that if ever I made a game, an actual Game of the Year in one of these lists, it meant that I was depressed. I know people will be worried, so I just want to clarify, not depressed. 2021 was a strange year. It was generally okay, just up until the last couple of weeks and the first couple of weeks also. Not too much to report, but Phasmophobia is kind of how I connected with a lot of people. Anyways, no spoilers. You can check out James's video, Hot Cider's video, if you're interested. And yeah, that's it for me. So thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays, happy whatever the hell, and have a good time. And just know that someday I'll replace the batteries in this, and I'll catch you staring at my titties. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I was about to say, can you sit on the sofa?
You can't, but I can. Hold on.
Okay, let's check it.
All right, I'm gonna line up my actual real-life office couch with... Yeah, I'm glad you asked. Okay, so hold on, wait, if I go here... No, wrong side. I need to be on this side. Okay, so my couch is right here. My armrest is right here. So everything looks good to me. So yeah, I'm just gonna turn around.
Are you just clipping through the sofa?
Yeah, my game of the year is probably the game we're currently in, which is Phasmophobia. It's a neat little indie horror game that I think came out like 2 years ago at this point. And yeah, but not exactly like for the. I mean, it is a really, really good game, and I've enjoyed it. But like, honestly, one of the big reasons is just straight up like this room that we've sadly made a horrible mess of. But